There is a place on Earth where the ocean becomes heavier than mountains, a place so deep that even sunlight has never reached it, where the water above presses down with a force strong enough to bend steel and erase anything unprotected in an instant. Beneath the waves, far below where storms, ships, and even whales disappear, the ocean continues to fall, not outward, but downward into a narrow scar in the planet's crust. It is deeper than Mount Everest is tall, deeper than any submarine was designed to travel. A trench carved into the earth that holds more pressure, more darkness, and more mystery than any other place on the surface of our world. As you descend, color drains away. Red vanishes first, then yellow, then green, until only blue remains, and then not even that. At this depth, sound behaves strangely, pressure warps materials, and the ocean itself feels less like water and more like something solid, something that pushes back. Yet this place is not empty. Cameras lowered into the abyss have recorded movement where nothing should survive. Small lights drifting in the black, soft bodies pulsing where no light exists, creatures shaped by a world that has never known sunrise, warmth, or seasons. Only a very small number of humans have ever seen this place directly, not through a screen, but from inside a pressure-sealed capsule, and even our most advanced machines struggle to stay intact here. So what does life look like when it is built under crushing pressure? How does biology exist where energy barely arrives? And what does this hidden world tell us about the limits of life on Earth? Tonight, we are going down, slowly, into the deepest place on our planet. But before we begin, if you enjoy these journeys, gentle, soothing, and quietly filled with wonder, I would be grateful if you gave this one a like and perhaps tapped subscribe. It helps other curious dreamers find their way to this peaceful little corner of the internet. And if you would be so kind, let me know in the comments, where are you listening from tonight, and what is the time over there? It is always a joy to see how far across the world these little stories travels. Now take a slow, deep breath, let your shoulders relax, and together, let's descend into the abyss that has been waiting for millions of years. The surface of the planet appears calm from a distance, oceans stretched wide, and continents resting in familiar outlines. Yet beneath that quiet skin, the earth is always moving. Its outer shell is not a single unbroken layer, but a mosaic of vast slabs of stone that drift slowly over the softer mantle below. These plates slide, press, separate, and collide in motion so gradual they escape daily notice, yet powerful enough to fold mountains upward and pull entire regions downward over millions of years. In some places, two plates move toward one another like patient giants. Neither can easily stop, and neither can vanish, so the meeting becomes an act of surrender. The denser plate begins to sink beneath the other, curving downward under its own weight. This slow descent bends the seafloor like fabric drawn into a deep crease. What begins as a subtle dip becomes a long, narrow valley, stretched across hundreds of miles, descending far beyond the reach of light and warmth. As the sinking plate slides deeper, gravity does the rest of the work. Cold oceanic crust grows heavier as it ages, cooling and thickening as it travels from its birthplace at mid-ocean ridges. By the time it reaches a collision zone, it is ready to fall. The edge tilts downward, dragging the seafloor with it, pulling water and sediment into a growing trench that deepens year by year, century by century, unnoticed by the world above. The shape of these trenches is not accidental. They are steep-sided and narrow because the bending plate resists breaking completely. Rock stretches, cracks, and groans, but it holds, forming a long scar rather than a wide basin. Sediments slide down its walls, carried by gravity into the depths, while earthquakes ripple through the boundary as reminders that the motion never stops. Even in silence and darkness, the planet continues its slow reshaping. Some parts of the ocean sink farther than others because not all crust is created equal. Differences in thickness, age, and density decide how deeply a plate will descend. Older seafloor is heavier, more willing to bow and sink, and when it meets another plate at just the right angle, the result is a trench that plunges far deeper than its neighbors. These places are not carved by erosion or hollowed by water alone, but lowered by the weight of the planet itself. Over vast spans of time, water gathers above these sinking regions, filling every new depth as it forms. The ocean does not create the trench, it simply follows it, pouring downward into a space opened by the shifting earth. Layer upon layer of water stacks above the sunken floor, growing colder, darker, and heavier with every added mile, until pressure becomes an inescapable presence. In this way, the deepest places on Earth are not anomalies, but natural consequences of a restless world. They exist because the planet is alive with motion, because stone can flow slowly like wax, and because gravity is endlessly patient. Long before humans learned to name these depths, the Earth had already shaped them, quietly pressing downward, creating hidden basements beneath the seas, waiting in darkness far below the turning surface of the world. Long before anyone imagined machines slipping quietly into the abyss, the ocean kept its greatest distance hidden behind calm surfaces and familiar horizons. Sailors crossed vast waters, guided by stars and winds, believing depth was a simple extension of shoreline, tapering gently into the unknown. Early attempts to measure the seafloor were humble and uncertain, guided by ropes and weighted lines lowered slowly into darkness. Each sounding carried patience and hope, the quiet expectation that the bottom would eventually answer. The answers, when they came, arrived softly but carried weight. Lines vanished far longer than expected, slipping downward without resistance, pulled by gravity into depths that refused to end. Crews marked the rope, waited, and waited again, listening to water and wind while the line continued its descent. When the weight finally touched something solid, the length recorded on deck seemed wrong, longer than maps allowed, deeper than reason suggested. At first, these readings were set aside as error, blamed on currents, stretching rope, or imprecise methods. As technology improved, disbelief lingered. Steel cables replaced hemp, winches replaced muscle, and measurements became steadier, more reliable. Sound itself was recruited for the task, pulses sent downward through the water, timed as they returned from below. The ocean began to answer in echoes rather than guesses. Each returning signal carried a message that felt unsettling in its consistency. The numbers aligned across voyages and instruments, across oceans and years, all pointing to the same impossible conclusion. Scientists hesitated before accepting what the data implied. The known seafloor was already vast and mysterious, yet these new measurements suggested places far deeper than any basin drawn on existing charts. The planet seemed to open beneath its own oceans, revealing cavities that stretched well beyond expectations formed on land. These were not gentle slopes or shallow plains, but sharp descents, sudden drops into spaces that felt out of proportion to the surface world above. With each confirmation, perspective shifted. Mountains, once considered the extremes of Earth's shape, no longer defined the limits of vertical distance. The idea that the planet could descend as dramatically as it rose challenged long-held assumptions about balance and scale. Depth became something active rather than passive, not merely absence beneath water, but a defining feature shaped by forces still moving unseen. The shock was not loud or dramatic. It unfolded slowly, as understanding often does, carried by repeated evidence rather than revelation. Charts were redrawn, models adjusted. The ocean, once treated as a boundary, became a layered space with dimensions as complex as the continents themselves. What had been imagined as a uniform blanket of water was now understood as a towering column pressing down upon hidden landscapes. These discoveries changed more than maps. They altered how scientists thought about pressure, temperature, and the endurance of materials. If the ocean could descend so far, then the environment at those depths would be unlike anything experienced at the surface. The water above would grow heavier with every layer, the darkness more complete, the cold more constant. These realizations arrived quietly, settling into scientific thought, like sediment sinking through still water. By the time consensus formed, the shock had softened into acceptance. The deepest places were no longer errors to be dismissed, but features to be understood. The ocean had revealed a new dimension of Earth, one measured not by distance across, but by distance down. And with that recognition, the planet itself felt larger, deeper, and more intricate than previously imagined, its hidden contours waiting patiently beneath the surface, unchanged by human surprise. At the surface, the ocean feels familiar and yielding, a moving skin that carries light and air and motion together. Wind stirs it easily, sunlight slips through it freely, and temperature shifts with the passing of clouds and seasons. Yet as depth increases, water begins to change in ways that are quiet but profound. Layer by layer, the ocean settles into a structure shaped by weight, cold, and time, each level pressing gently upon the one beneath it. With every descent, water becomes denser. Molecules draw closer together under the steady burden of all that rests above. This compression is subtle at first, barely noticeable, but it never stops. The deeper the water lies, the more tightly packed it becomes, turning what seemed fluid and light into something heavier, more deliberate. This growing density alters how water moves, how currents travel, and how energy drifts through the deep, slowing everything into a patient, suspended state. Temperature follows its own quiet path downward. Near the top, warmth lingers, held by sunlight and the constant exchange with the air above. As depth increases, that warmth fades, slipping away until the water settles into a near constant cold. Layers form gently, one resting upon the next, each defined by slight differences in heat and density. These layers rarely mix, creating invisible boundaries that separate the familiar upper ocean from the stillness below. As cold takes hold, it reshapes the water's character. Colder water is heavier, sinking beneath warmer layers, reinforcing the slow descent toward the depths. This stratification locks the deep ocean into a stable calm where change arrives over centuries rather than days. Heat from the surface rarely reaches these depths, leaving the water in a near perpetual chill, unchanged by passing climates above. The increasing weight of water above transforms pressure into a constant presence. Every additional meter adds more mass, more force pressing downward. Over vast depths, this pressure accumulates into something immense, shaping the behavior of water itself. The ocean no longer moves as a loose, playful medium, but as a dense, compressive column that resists sudden motion. Currents slow, turbulence fades, and the water begins to feel almost solid in its persistence. This heaviness is not created by thickness alone, but by the combined effects of density, cold, and pressure working together. Each factor strengthens the next, forming an environment where gravity dominates every interaction. Objects sink steadily, sound travels differently, and movement becomes measured. Even time seems altered, stretched by the slow circulation of deep currents that may take centuries to complete a single loop around the planet. Despite this growing weight, the ocean remains water, still capable of motion and life, though both are reshaped by the conditions below. The deep sea is not stagnant, but deliberate, its movements subtle and restrained. Here, the ocean carries itself with quiet authority, shaped by physics rather than weather, by depth rather than daylight. As the descent continues, these changes accumulate, layering water into a towering structure that presses downward with unwavering patience. What began as a surface shaped by light becomes a vast vertical world defined by density and cold. The ocean grows heavier not through force alone, but through time, pressure, and the slow settling of water into its deepest, most enduring form. Light does not end abruptly as the descent continues. It thins, stretches, and fades in stages, as if the ocean itself is slowly closing a curtain. Near the upper layers, brightness still moves freely, scattered by waves and drifting particles, painting the water with shifting patterns. With depth, those patterns soften, shadows grow longer. The brightness that once felt abundant becomes selective, lingering only where it can still travel. Color is the first to change. Red disappears almost immediately, absorbed by the water because its longer wavelengths cannot move far before surrendering their energy. Objects that once appeared warm and vivid lose that quality, turning dark and muted even though light is still present. Orange follows quietly, then yellow, each fading not through distance alone but through interaction with the water itself, which captures and disperses their energy layer by layer. As the descent continues, green weakens and slips away. What remains is a narrow band of blue, short wavelengths that travel farther than any other visible color. For a time, this blue light defines the deep ocean's character. It creates a dim, cool glow, enough to outline shapes but not enough to reveal detail. This blue is not brightness but persistence, light surviving not because it is strong, but because it is efficient. Eventually, even blue reaches its limit. The water absorbs what remains, scattering the last usable photons until nothing meaningful returns. The transition into darkness is gradual, almost gentle, marked not by a sudden loss but by a quiet absence. The ocean does not announce this moment. It simply becomes a place where light no longer arrives, no matter the time of day or the season above. At this depth, darkness is not a condition but a constant. Sunlight cannot penetrate far enough to matter, and no reflection or refraction brings it back. The water closes fully around the descent, forming a space untouched by the rhythms of day and night. There is no dawn or dusk here, only an enduring black that remains unchanged for millennia. This permanent darkness reshapes the environment completely. Without sunlight, the visual world becomes irrelevant. Surfaces no longer reflect color, and distance cannot be judged by sight alone. The ocean becomes a place where visibility is replaced by proximity, where presence matters more than appearance. Even particles drifting through the water seem to disappear unless illuminated by an artificial glow. Yet darkness does not mean emptiness. Instead, it creates a different kind of space, one where energy moves without light and life adapts without vision. The absence of color simplifies the world, reducing it to motion, pressure, and sound carried through dense water. Darkness becomes the background against which everything else exists, steady and unchanging. Over long spans of time, this lack of light becomes absolute. Nothing natural interrupts it. No storm reaches here. No seasonal shift alters it. The sun, though still burning far above, has no influence left to give. The ocean holds this darkness carefully, sealed by depth and distance, making it one of the most stable environments on the planet. As the descent continues beyond the reach of all color, light is no longer something that fades, it is something that has ended. What remains is a vast interior world defined by pressure and stillness, shaped not by what can be seen, but by what quietly persists without illumination, waiting far below the surface of the living sea. As the descent continues beyond the reach of light, another force quietly takes control. Pressure does not announce itself with sound or motion. It arrives through accumulation, the simple result of water stacking upon water, layer after layer, mile after mile. Every additional depth adds more weight, not as a sudden burden, but as a constant, growing presence that never eases. At shallow depths, pressure is gentle enough to go unnoticed. Deeper down, it becomes persistent. Water presses inward from all directions at once, squeezing evenly, patiently, without pause. Unlike wind or waves, it never gusts or fades. It simply exists, steady and unavoidable, shaping everything within its reach. This pressure builds because water cannot be compressed easily. Instead of yielding, it transfers its weight downward, passing the load along until it rests on whatever lies below. Objects descending into these depths begin to feel this change. Materials that feel solid and reliable at the surface respond differently when surrounded by such force. Tiny spaces within them shrink, weak points bend. Over time, cracks form not from impact, but from endurance. The ocean applies no single blow. It persuades through constancy, pressing inward until structure gives way. Steel, often imagined as unyielding, is not immune. At extreme depths, even thick metal plates can warp, seams can fail, and shapes can distort. Cylinders collapse, flat surfaces bow, and frames compress inward as if gently folded by invisible hands. The deeper an object goes, the more perfectly balanced the force becomes, leaving no direction of escape. Strength alone is not enough. Design becomes everything. Living bodies are even more vulnerable. Spaces filled with air collapse instantly. Tissues compress beyond their limits, and circulation fails under forces far greater than anything experienced on land. This is not violence in motion, but physics at rest, pressure asserting itself simply by being present. Survival is not a matter of resilience, but of protection. To enter such an environment, humans must reshape their approach entirely. Submersibles built for these depths are unlike any vehicle meant for the surface. They are compact, rounded, and deliberately simple. Curves replace angles because smooth shapes distribute pressure evenly. Spheres become essential as they resist collapse better than almost any other form. Every joint, window, and seal is designed to eliminate weak points, reducing the chance of stress focusing in one place. Materials are chosen not just for strength, but for flexibility. Some components are allowed to compress slightly, absorbing force rather than resisting it completely. Systems are layered, redundant, and isolated because failure in one area cannot be allowed to spread. Even cables, cameras, and lights are built to tolerate conditions that would destroy ordinary equipment in moments. Inside these vessels, a thin pocket of normal pressure is preserved, an artificial island of surface conditions surrounded by crushing weight. The contrast is extreme. Just beyond the hull, forces strong enough to destroy steel remain fully contained, held back only by careful engineering and constant vigilance. The boundary between safety and collapse is measured in centimeters. As depth increases, the the margin for error narrows. Each additional descent multiplies the stress placed on every surface. Pressure becomes the defining feature of the environment, shaping design, limiting exploration, and setting strict boundaries on how far humans can travel. It is not an obstacle to overcome, but a condition to respect. In this part of the ocean, pressure rules without motion or sound. It does not chase or threaten. It simply remains, steady and absolute, reminding all who descend that the deepest places on Earth are governed by forces that require patience, precision, and humility to enter, and careful preparation to leave unchanged. Long before tools and vessels extended human reach, the body itself defined where we could exist. It evolved in balance with the thin layer of air at the surface, shaped by gravity, temperature, and pressure gentle enough to allow lungs to expand and blood to flow freely. Far below the ocean's surface, that balance unravels. The rules that support life on land no longer apply, and the body's familiar systems begin to fail quietly and completely. Pressure becomes the first and final barrier. As depth increases, it presses inward with equal force from every direction, leaving no place for the body to resist. Lungs, designed to fill and empty with air, rely on delicate structures that collapse when squeezed. Each tiny airspace is pushed smaller and smaller, unable to hold shape against the surrounding force. Breathing, which depends on the movement of air across flexible membranes, becomes impossible when those membranes can no longer flex. As pressure increases, air itself turns dangerous. Gases compress, dissolving into the bloodstream in abnormal ways. Nitrogen, harmless at the surface, begins to behave differently under weight, slipping into tissues and altering how nerves send signals. Oxygen, essential to survival, becomes difficult to manage as its balance shifts. The blood, meant to carry gases in precise proportions, loses its delicate stability. Circulation suffers next. Blood vessels, built to withstand the gentle pressure of gravity and motion, are compressed beyond their limits. Flow slows. Exchange of oxygen and nutrients falters. The heart continues its rhythm, but the environment overwhelms its effort. What was once a self-sustaining system becomes strained, then unworkable, under the uniform squeeze of the deep. Water temperature compounds these effects. Cold stiffens tissues, reduces flexibility, and steals heat from the body faster than it can be replaced. Muscles lose responsiveness. Chemical reactions that sustain life slow subtly but relentlessly. In this environment, the body cannot maintain equilibrium for more than moments, even before damage becomes visible. These failures do not arrive with drama. There is no sudden rupture or violent impact. Instead, the body simply cannot function as designed. Evolution never prepared it for such depth. The systems that allow survival on land and shallow water have limits shaped by millions of years near the surface, not beneath crushing weight. Technology exists to replace what the body cannot provide. Pressure-sealed capsules hold a pocket of surface conditions, preserving breathable air and stable temperature. Thick walls carry the burden of the ocean so lungs and blood do not have to. Life support systems regulate oxygen and remove waste, carefully maintaining a balance that nature cannot sustain on its own at these depths. Even within these protective shells, humans remain visitors, not residents. Every seal, every gauge, every component works continuously to counter forces far greater than the body could endure unaided. Survival depends on engineering precision rather than physical adaptation. Movement becomes slow and deliberate, controlled by machinery instead of muscle. The deep ocean reveals a clear boundary between where humans belong and where they may only pass briefly. Without technology, the descent ends quickly and irrevocably. With it, entry becomes possible but never casual. The body's limits remain unchanged, a quiet reminder that some parts of the planet exist beyond natural human reach, accessible only through careful invention and respect for the forces that rule beneath the sea. When human bodies could no longer follow the descent, machines took their place, carrying curiosity into depths that resisted presence. These early efforts were careful and experimental, built with more caution than confidence. Engineers worked with limited knowledge, shaping metal to withstand forces that could not be tested on land. Every design carried uncertainty, and every descent carried risk, not only to equipment but to understanding itself. The first submersibles were compact and deliberate, lowered slowly into the water rather than launched with speed. Thick hulls enclosed delicate instruments, while cables and winches connected the unknown below to the waiting surface above. As these machines sank, they passed through layers already described in charts and calculations, then continued into regions no device had endured before. With each meter gained, pressure increased, and the margin for error narrowed. Danger accompanied every mission. Seals could fail without warning. Viewports might cloud or fracture. Electronics could falter in cold and compression, leaving machines blind and silent in the dark. Recovery was never guaranteed. Some devices vanished entirely, pulled beyond reach, or crushed into stillness, their data lost with them. Others returned damaged, bearing the marks of stress in bent frames and warped housings, quiet evidence of forces encountered below. Despite these risks, the machines continued to descend. Instruments recorded depth with increasing disbelief. Sensors measured temperature and pressure values that reshaped scientific expectations. Cameras, protected behind thick glass, captured fleeting glimpses of the deep. At first, these images showed little more than drifting particles and empty water. The absence itself felt significant, confirming how far beyond sunlight these machines had traveled. Then movement appeared, not sudden or dramatic, but subtle. Shapes passed slowly through the frame. Fine structures pulsed gently, drifting rather than swimming. On the seafloor, where it finally came into view, sediments lay undisturbed, forming soft plains shaped by time instead of waves. Life revealed itself not as abundance, but as persistence. These discoveries challenged earlier assumptions. The deep was expected to be barren, too pressured, too cold, too distant from energy to support anything complex. Yet the machines recorded living forms where theory predicted silence. Animals with translucent bodies moved carefully through darkness. Others rested on the sediment, leaving faint traces where they passed. Even where food arrived only rarely, life endured. The machines themselves became extensions of human senses. Temperature readings suggested stability rather than chaos. Pressure gauges confirmed forces once thought impossible to survive. Chemical sensors detected traces of organic matter drifting downward from worlds far above. Each data point added depth to understanding, building a portrait of an environment defined not by absence, but by adaptation. Over time, designs improved. Hulls grew stronger, instruments became more precise. Power systems extended mission length, allowing machines to linger rather than rush. The danger never vanished, but familiarity grew alongside respect. Engineers learned which shapes resisted pressure best, which materials endured longest, and which systems required redundancy. Every lesson came at a cost, often paid in lost equipment and hard-won experience. Through these early descents, the deep ocean began to emerge, not as an abstract extreme, but as a real place with structure and inhabitants. Machines returned carrying more than measurements. They brought back evidence that expanded the boundaries of where life could exist. In doing so, they opened a quiet path forward, allowing exploration to continue not through strength or speed, but through patience, resilience, and carefully crafted steel lowered gently into the waiting dark. When machines had proven the depths could be reached, a quiet determination followed. There was a desire not only to measure and record, but to witness, to be present inside the darkness rather than observing it through wires and screens. This step carried a different weight. Steel and circuitry could fail without consequence to breath and heartbeat. A human descent demanded trust in design, discipline in motion, and acceptance of limits that could not be tested halfway. The earliest crewed dives were deliberate and restrained. Pilots entered compact pressure spheres that felt less like vehicles and more like sealed rooms detached from the world above. Once closed, those rooms became self-contained islands, isolated from the ocean by curved walls of metal and glass. The descent began slowly, guided by ballast and gravity, lowering the capsule away from the familiar brightness of the surface. As depth increased, the world outside transformed. Sunlit blues softened and thinned, replaced by darker tones that pressed closer to the windows. The motion of water slowed until it seemed suspended, carrying drifting particles that moved without urgency. Pilots later described this transition as less a fall and more a quiet withdrawal, as if the ocean were gently closing its distance from the surface behind them. With greater depth came silence of a different kind. The sounds of the vessel changed, replaced by subtle creaks and distant groans as the hull adjusted to pressure. These noises were not sudden or sharp, but measured, almost rhythmic, reminders that the surrounding force was immense and constant. Inside the capsule, instruments glowed softly, their steady lights contrasting with the growing absence beyond the glass. What the pilots saw was not spectacle in the usual sense. The seafloor appeared gradually, not revealed in a moment, but emerging from darkness as shapes gathered meaning. Sediment lay undisturbed, fine and pale, shaped by time rather than movement. There were signs of life, but sparse and restrained. Small organisms moved deliberately, conserving energy, their bodies adapted to conditions few environments could offer. The presence of these living forms left a lasting impression. In a place expected to feel empty, the quiet persistence of life stood out more than abundance ever could. Pilots noted how motion was slow and purposeful, how nothing appeared rushed or wasteful. Every movement seemed necessary, shaped by an environment where resources arrived infrequently and survival depended on efficiency. Describing the descent later proved difficult. Words struggled to capture the sensation of leaving the surface world behind without traveling far in distance. The experience felt vertical rather than horizontal, a journey inward rather than away. Many spoke of a gradual detachment from familiar reference points, as if gravity itself changed character with depth. The ocean above felt heavier, more present, while the surface became abstract and distant. Time behaved differently during these dives. Without light or changing scenery, minutes blended together. The descent unfolded as a continuous moment, guided by instruments rather than instinct. Pilots relied on depth readings and measured procedures to track progress, anchoring themselves to numbers and protocols while surrounded by an environment indifferent to human presence. When the ascent finally began, it carried its own quiet shift. The return did not feel like escape, but like re-entry, a slow restoration of light and movement. Those who made these early dives surfaced with a deeper understanding not only of the ocean's depths, but of restraint and scale. Their experiences did not redefine human dominance, but clarified human position, as brief visitors allowed passage into a world that continues, unchanged, long after the surface is left behind. The descent begins without drama. There is no sudden drop, no rush of speed, only a steady surrender to gravity as ballast releases and the surface loosens its hold. Pilots watch gauges settle into motion, numbers changing at a calm, measured pace. Outside the viewport, the ocean still carries a hint of daylight, thin and pale, drifting past like memory rather than presence. At first, the water seems alive with detail. Particles slide upward as the vessel sinks, tiny flecks catching what light remains. Faint shapes pass at a distance, suggested more by movement than form. The ocean breathes here, stirred by currents that still remember the surface, carrying traces of warmth and motion downward. As depth increases, those traces fade. The water thickens visually, not in substance, but in feeling. Color recedes until the world beyond the glass turns muted and restrained. The blue narrows, then dims, and the sense of space changes with it. Distances become harder to judge. The boundary between far and near grows uncertain, leaving only what is illuminated to feel real. The vessel continues its quiet fall. The sounds inside shift subtly as pressure settles against the hull. Soft creaks appear and disappear, not alarming, simply reminders that the structure is adjusting to an environment that grows heavier with every passing moment. Instruments glow with steady assurance, small constellations of light anchoring attention inward as the world outside simplifies. The ocean itself becomes calmer. Movement slows, currents soften, and the water takes on a stillness shaped by weight rather than peace. There are fewer signs of passing life, fewer interruptions of motion. The descent feels less like traveling through water and more like entering a layered interior where each level holds its own quiet character. With greater depth comes a shift in awareness. The surface no longer feels nearby. It becomes an abstract idea, existing somewhere above rather than behind. The notion of distance stretches vertically, and the body senses it even while seated and still. The pressure outside cannot be felt directly, yet its presence is known through the careful behavior of the vessel and the attention paid to every reading. Light from the craft begins to matter more. Beams extend into darkness, revealing only what lies directly ahead before dissolving into black. The ocean does not reflect much back. Instead, it absorbs, leaving illuminated spaces isolated and fleeting. What is not lit simply does not appear, giving the impression of endless depth without horizon or boundary. Time changes its texture during the descent. Without visual landmarks or shifting light, moments blend together. The journey is tracked through numbers and procedure rather than sensation. Each interval passes quietly, marked by depth increments and system checks, reinforcing the sense of moving inward rather than forward. The feeling of depth grows steadily. It is not fear or excitement, but awareness, a recognition of being enveloped by something vast and indifferent. The ocean presses closer, not physically, but conceptually, surrounding the vessel with layers that stretch far beyond sight. The idea of space expands downward, and with it, the understanding that this journey is not across a landscape, but into one. As the descent continues, the ocean settles fully into its deep identity. Motion yields to stillness. Light yields to absence. The vessel sinks on, carrying its small island of brightness through a world defined less by what can be seen and more by what quietly surrounds it, patiently allowing the depth to reveal itself one layer at a time. As the descent continues, the ocean enters a region where light has not vanished yet, but it no longer belongs to the surface. This is the twilight zone, a vast middle layer suspended between brightness and darkness. Here, sunlight arrives weakened and filtered, stretched thin by the weight of water above. What remains is a soft blue glow that feels distant and subdued, more suggestion than illumination. The water takes on a deep cobalt tone, neither bright nor fully dark. Shapes are visible, but only briefly and at close range. Edges blur easily, and movement often appears before form. The light does not scatter freely anymore. Instead, it drifts downward reluctantly, fading with every meter until it feels borrowed, as though the ocean is slowly deciding how much it will allow to remain. In this dim world, space feels wider than sight can confirm. Beams from the vessel extend outward and dissolve quickly, absorbed by the water before they can define distance. What lies beyond that faint blue boundary cannot be seen, only inferred. The ocean no longer offers a clear sense of scale, and depth becomes something sensed rather than measured. Life still passes through this layer, though rarely in large numbers. This is not a place of permanent residence for most animals, but a corridor crossed during migrations between feeding grounds above and refuge below. Large bodies appear unexpectedly, sliding into view without warning. Whales pass silently, their outlines immense yet softened by the dim light. Schools of fish move as slow, shifting shadows, unified and deliberate, their silver sides barely catching what light remains. These animals do not linger. They travel through the twilight zone with purpose, guided by instincts older than the ocean layers themselves. Some rise toward the surface under cover of darkness. Others descend before daylight strengthens, timing their movement to avoid exposure. Their presence is fleeting, marked by gentle motion rather than disturbance, leaving the water unchanged behind them. The light here behaves differently with every moment. Clouds passing far above can subtly alter the glow, though the connection feels distant and indirect. Day and night still exist, but only as faint rhythms, perceived through slight shifts in brightness rather than clear transitions. The ocean remembers the sun in this zone, but only dimly, as though recalling something once familiar. Colors are limited to variations of blue and gray. Reds and yellows are long gone, leaving no warmth behind. Even blue itself grows thinner with depth, slowly giving way to deeper tones that hint at the darkness below. The environment feels restrained, calm, shaped by slow movement and filtered energy. Sound travels farther than light here. Low vibrations pass through the water, carrying echoes of distant movement. The hum of the vessel blends into this acoustic world, neither intrusive nor dominant. Everything feels muted, softened by depth and density, as though the ocean has dampened sharp edges and sudden changes. This zone marks the final chapter of sunlight's influence. Below it, darkness will take full control, uninterrupted and complete. The twilight zone lingers between those states, a transitional realm where the surface still casts a faint presence, but no longer defines the rules. It is a place of passing rather than arrival, where life moves through carefully and light hesitates before letting go. As the descent continues, the blue dims further, stretching thinner with every moment. The ocean prepares to close the door on daylight entirely, and the last traces of sunlight fade quietly behind, leaving the vessel suspended in a world that stands at the edge of night. The ocean slips fully into night. Here, darkness is complete, unbroken by season or hour, sealed away from the distant sun by depth alone. There is no lingering blue, no borrowed glow from above. The water absorbs every trace of light, holding it without reflection. The descent continues into a space where sight depends entirely on what the vessel carries with it, and the surrounding world exists beyond vision until revealed. In this zone, the absence of light reshapes everything. Distance loses meaning. Without contrast or color, the ocean becomes a vast interior defined by volume rather than direction. The beam from the viewport cuts a narrow path through blackness, showing only a small circle of water before surrendering again to the dark. Beyond that edge, nothing announces itself in advance. Yet the darkness is not empty. At times, faint points of light appear without warning, tiny sparks suspended in the black. Some drift slowly, others flash briefly and vanish. These are living signals, produced by organisms that generate their own light through chemical reactions within their bodies. In a world without sunlight, illumination becomes an internal act, created rather than received. The glow is subtle and varied. Some organisms emit a steady, dim radiance, outlining soft, translucent forms. Others pulse rhythmically, their light appearing and fading like distant stars. The colors are limited, often blue or green, wavelengths that travel farther through water. Each glow is brief and controlled, conserving energy in an environment where resources arrive rarely. Movement becomes the language of this place. Shapes reveal themselves through motion rather than outline. A drifting glow may bend or change pace, hinting at delicate fins or trailing appendages. Some lights streak suddenly across the beam, vanishing before the eye can follow. Others hover almost motionless, their faint light marking a presence rather than an action. These displays are not decoration. Light here serves purpose. It can lure prey closer, confuse predators, or help individuals recognize one another in the dark. In the absence of sight as it exists near the surface, light becomes a tool, used sparingly and with precision. The ocean below has learned to communicate without sun or shadow. The water itself feels heavier in this zone, not physically sensed, but perceived through stillness. Currents are slow and restrained. Suspended particles drift with no clear destination. The environment appears calm, shaped by pressure and time rather than weather. Sounds from the vessel carry farther than light, slipping away into darkness without echo. Life here moves carefully. Energy is preserved through slow motion and soft bodies. Many organisms appear fragile, their forms gelatinous and flexible, built to endure pressure rather than resist it. Hard shells are rare. Movement is deliberate, every action measured against the cost of energy spent in a place where replacement is never guaranteed. As the vessel continues downward, these glowing encounters become more infrequent. Darkness expands between moments of light, emphasizing the scale of the surrounding space. Each glow feels isolated, a brief connection in an otherwise continuous night. The deep does not reveal itself all at once. It allows glimpses, then withdraws again into silence. In the midnight zone, the ocean exists without reference to the surface. Day and night have no meaning here. Time moves without markers, and life adapts accordingly. The darkness is not hostile or dramatic. It is simply complete, a permanent condition that shapes every movement and interaction. Within it, faint lights drift and fade, quiet signatures of life, continuing calmly beneath miles of water, unseen by the world above. As the descent continues, another change settles in, slower than darkness and heavier than pressure. Sound begins to loosen its grip. Near the surface, the ocean carries noise easily, waves speaking to wind, rain tapping the water, distant engines threading vibrations through layers of motion. Deeper down, those signals thin. They stretch, soften, and lose definition, as though the water itself is gently absorbing them. The first sounds to fade are the complex ones. Echoes blur together, stripped of their edges until they become indistinct hums. Direction becomes difficult to sense. What remains arrives as low vibrations rather than recognizable noise, felt more than heard. The ocean does not fall silent at once. Instead, it quiets gradually, letting sound dissolve into background presence. Inside the vessel, every noise gains importance. The soft whir of systems, the muted rhythm of circulation, the occasional adjustment of metal under pressure, all stand out sharply against the surrounding stillness. These sounds do not travel far. They seem to remain close, contained within the small interior space, never escaping into the vast water beyond. Outside, the deep grows increasingly still. Currents slow to near imperceptibility. Suspended particles drift without urgency, settling or rising so gently that motion becomes difficult to confirm. The water holds its position patiently, shaped by pressure rather than force. Nothing rushes, nothing pushes. The environment seems content to remain exactly as it is. This stillness alters perception. Without sound or movement to provide reference, time loses texture. Moments stretch without markers. The body remains seated and protected, yet the mind senses expansion rather than enclosure. The ocean feels enormous, not because it moves, but because it does not need to. Its size is expressed through calm rather than activity. The quiet here is not absence, but balance. Vibrations still pass through the water, but slowly, evenly, without interruption. There are no sudden changes to demand attention. The deep maintains a steady state, one shaped by constant conditions that rarely shift. This constancy creates an atmosphere that feels detached from the surface world, as if existing outside ordinary experience. That detachment gives rise to a subtle sense of unreality. Without familiar cues, the environment resists easy interpretation. Distance cannot be judged by sound. Motion cannot be confirmed by sight. The mind searches for patterns it recognizes. Finding few, the deep does not behave like open water near the surface or like solid land. It occupies its own category, governed by different rules. The unreal quality does not come from threat or strangeness, but from simplicity. The ocean has stripped itself down to essentials. Pressure, darkness, cold, and time remain, while many surface distractions have fallen away. What is left feels elemental, almost abstract, a place where complexity has been pared back rather than built up. In this quiet, awareness turns inward. Attention drifts to breath, to the steady rhythm of systems maintaining balance within the vessel. The contrast between the small, active interior and the immense, still exterior becomes clear. The boundary is thin, defined by engineering rather than environment, yet it holds firm. The deep does not react to observation. It does not respond to sound or presence. It simply continues, silent and composed, allowing the descent to pass through without acknowledgement. This is why it feels unreal. Not because it is imaginary, but because it exists so completely on its own terms, indifferent to human expectation, waiting quietly beneath the noise and motion of the surface world. The descent eases, then slows to a near pause, and the ocean reveals a final surface beneath the water. The seafloor arrives not as a sharp boundary, but as a gradual clarification. At first, it appears as a faint change in texture, a subtle gathering of shadow beneath the beam. Then detail emerges. The bottom stretches outward, wide and quiet, shaped by gravity and patience rather than movement. This landscape does not resemble land. There are no cliffs or sweeping ridges in the familiar sense, only gentle undulations and shallow depressions softened by time. Fine sediments cover nearly everything, laid down grain by grain over countless ages. Each particle has fallen slowly from above, settling when all motion finally faded. The surface looks smooth from a distance, yet closer inspection reveals delicate ripples and slight mounds formed by currents so weak they leave no sound behind. The ground itself is a mixture of materials drawn from many worlds. Minerals eroded from distant continents lie beside microscopic shells that drifted down from sunlit waters long ago. Fragments of organic matter rest among volcanic grains born deep within the earth. This quiet accumulation creates a soft plain, neither solid rock nor loose sand, but something in between, yielding and stable at once. Occasionally, darker shapes interrupt the uniformity. These are outcrops where the crust rises through the sediment, reminders that this floor belongs to the planet's structure, not only the ocean above it. Rock surfaces appear worn and ancient, untouched by waves or storms. Here, change arrives slowly, measured in geological time rather than seasons. Despite its stillness, the seafloor is not empty. Life reveals itself subtly, without sudden motion or abundance. Small tracks wind across the sediment, faint lines marking where organisms have passed. Burrows open and close, barely visible unless illuminated at the right angle. These signs suggest activity that unfolds gradually, often hidden beneath the surface rather than upon it. Creatures here are shaped to blend with the ground. Soft-bodied animals rest against the sediment, their forms pale and translucent, conserving energy through stillness. Others move slowly across the plain, disturbing only the thinnest layer of particles as they go. Each movement is deliberate, efficient, shaped by an environment where effort must always be measured. Food arrives rarely, but it does arrive. Particles descend from above, remnants of life from higher waters, falling gently through darkness until they reach the bottom. Larger offerings come less often, sinking silently and becoming temporary centers of activity. When this happens, life gathers carefully, never hurried, sharing what has reached them before it becomes part of the sediment itself. The seafloor supports this life not through abundance, but through consistency. Conditions change very little here. Temperature remains nearly constant. Currents are weak. Darkness is complete. This stability allows organisms to exist with minimal energy, adapted to a world where nothing encourages speed or excess. As the vessel hovers above this quiet plain, the scale of the descent becomes clear. Miles of water rest above this gentle surface, pressing down without movement or sound. The seafloor does not resist or respond. It simply exists, bearing the weight patiently, shaped by processes that began long before the surface world took its current form. Reaching the bottom feels less like arrival and more like settling into place. The journey downward has ended, but the environment continues, calm and unbroken. The seafloor holds its quiet presence, supporting life that persists without light or noise, resting at the deepest edge of the living ocean. At the deepest parts of the ocean, temperature settles into a narrow range and stays there. The water hovers just above freezing, cold enough to slow chemistry and stiffen motion, yet not cold enough to turn solid. This chill is constant, unaffected by seasons, storms, or shifting climates above. It is a cold shaped by depth and distance, preserved by isolation rather than weather. Sunlight no longer plays any role here. Heat from the surface cannot reach this far down, blocked by miles of water that absorb and disperse energy long before it arrives. What warmth the ocean once held is lost gradually during descent, given up layer by layer until only the background temperature of the deep remains. That temperature reflects the balance between pressure, salt content, and the slow circulation of global currents. The reason this water never warms lies in stillness and permanence. The deep ocean is largely cut off from rapid mixing. Warm surface waters are lighter and remain above, while cold, dense water sinks and stays in place. Once established, this structure changes only over centuries. Heat exchange is slow and limited, moving through the deep as a quiet, patient drift rather than a wave. Near the seafloor, this cold becomes absolute in its consistency. There are no daily fluctuations, no brief pulses of warmth. The water maintains the same temperature year after year, generation after generation. It is one of the most stable thermal environments on the planet, its chill locked in by depth and the immense weight of the ocean above. For life, this cold sets strict conditions. Chemical reactions slow, metabolism quiets, and growth unfolds at a measured pace. Organisms here do not burn energy quickly. They conserve it, shaped by an environment where food arrives rarely and survival depends on efficiency rather than speed. Bodies are often soft, flexible, and slow-moving, built to function without generating much internal heat. This cold also influences size and structure. Muscles contract more slowly. Nerves transmit signals at a reduced rate. Many deep-sea animals rely on steady, minimal motion rather than bursts of activity. Their physiology reflects patience, tuned to an environment where sudden changes are unlikely and endurance matters more than strength. Despite this chill, life does not struggle in the way it might near the surface. These organisms are not resisting the cold. They are aligned with it. Their enzymes function best at low temperatures. Their cell membranes remain stable and flexible in the cold water. Over time, evolution has adjusted every process to match the surrounding conditions, creating a quiet harmony between body and environment. The cold also helps preserve the deep. Decomposition slows, allowing organic matter to last longer once it reaches the bottom. This extends the availability of scarce resources, supporting life that depends on slow arrival rather than abundance. In this way, the cold becomes part of the ecosystem's balance, limiting chaos and favoring steadiness. As the vessel rests near the seafloor, the temperature feels abstract rather than physical, measured by instruments rather than sensation, yet its influence is everywhere. It shapes movement, governs chemistry, and defines the rhythm of life in this hidden world. Nothing here expects warmth, nothing waits for change. The coldest water on Earth is not harsh or dramatic. It is calm, constant, and enduring. It holds the deep ocean in a steady state, allowing life to continue quietly at the edge of possibility, shaped by patience and time rather than heat and haste. Life at the deepest seafloor does not announce itself through size or motion. It reveals itself quietly, shaped by pressure, cold, and scarcity into forms that appear almost unfinished. These animals do not rush or resist their environment. They match it, existing with bodies tuned to a place where force is constant and energy rare. Among the most familiar inhabitants are snailfish, pale and delicate, drifting close to the bottom. Their bodies lack the firmness expected in shallower waters. Bones are reduced, muscles are soft, and skin appears thin and translucent. This softness is not weakness, it is adaptation. Without air-filled spaces and rigid structures, pressure has little to crush. The snailfish move slowly, using gentle motions to hover above the sediment, conserving energy while remaining alert to what little food arrives. Shrimp are present as well, though they appear different from their surface relatives. Their shells are thinner, their movements measured. They often gather near fallen debris, drawn to the sparse nourishment that settles from above. Instead of aggressive competition, their feeding unfolds gradually. Each individual takes what it can, retreating without urgency. The deep does not reward haste, it favors patience. Worms thread through the sediment, rarely seen in full. Their presence is marked by faint trails and small openings where the seafloor shifts slightly under their movement. These worms process the bottom itself, consuming organic material buried within the mud. In doing so, they quietly recycle what little energy reaches the depths. Their bodies are long and flexible, suited to pushing through compacted layers without resistance. What unites these animals is fragility, at least by surface standards. Their bodies appear soft, sometimes gelatinous, lacking the hard armor common elsewhere. This softness allows pressure to pass through evenly, preventing damage. Strength here is measured not by resistance, but by compatibility with the environment. These animals are not built to fight the deep. They are built to belong to it. Eyes, when present, are often small or underdeveloped. Vision holds little value where darkness is permanent. Other senses take precedence. Movement, vibration, and chemical traces guide behavior. Life continues without color or clear outlines, shaped instead by proximity and subtle change. Growth is slow. Lifespans are long. Reproduction happens carefully, timed to conditions that are difficult to predict but remarkably stable once they occur. Many species rely on low-energy strategies, producing fewer offspring and investing more in each one. Survival depends on alignment with the environment rather than excess. Despite their delicate appearance, these animals endure conditions that would destroy surface life instantly. Their tissues function under immense pressure. Their proteins remain stable in cold that never eases. Every aspect of their biology reflects fine-tuning to a narrow range of conditions maintained over generations. The presence of these creatures transforms the seafloor from a silent plain into a living system. Trails overlap, feeding marks accumulate. Sediment shifts slowly under the influence of many small movements. Nothing dramatic occurs, yet activity is constant, spread out over time rather than space. Watching these animals reveals a different model of life. There is no rush toward dominance or expansion. There is persistence. Existence unfolds quietly, shaped by limits rather than opportunity. These soft bodies endure not by overcoming the deep, but by becoming part of it. At the bottom of the ocean, life does not shine or roar. It rests, drifts, and feeds with careful economy. In doing so, it demonstrates that even in the most extreme environments, survival can take a gentle form, defined by subtle motion and fragile strength sustained over immense spans of time. Pressure defines everything in the deepest ocean, yet life persists by yielding rather than resisting. Survival here depends on cooperation with force instead of opposition. Every organism that endures this environment does so through subtle adjustments that turn constant compression into a stable condition rather than a threat. At the smallest scale, survival begins within cells. Proteins, the working structures that make life function, behave differently under immense pressure. In surface conditions, many proteins would twist or break when squeezed beyond their limits. In the deep, organisms rely on special versions that remain flexible and stable despite constant force. These proteins fold in ways that allow them to continue their work without losing shape, maintaining chemical reactions that would otherwise fail. This quiet resilience keeps muscles moving, nerves signaling, and metabolism flowing in an environment that never relents. Cell membranes also adapt. They remain fluid even in cold and pressure, avoiding the stiffness that would disrupt exchange between the cell and its surroundings. This balance allows nutrients and waste to pass through steadily, preventing buildup that could become harmful. Nothing here works quickly, but everything works reliably, tuned to a narrow but dependable range of conditions. Beyond the cellular level, body design plays an equally important role. Deep sea animals are built with soft tissues that distribute pressure evenly. Hard structures concentrate force and create breaking points. Soft bodies allow compression to occur gently without damage. Muscles flex slowly, skin stretches without tearing, and internal organs shift slightly as pressure changes, absorbing force rather than resisting it. This softness often gives deep-sea animals a fragile appearance, yet that appearance is misleading. What seems delicate is actually robust in its own way, engineered by evolution to exist comfortably where rigidity would fail. The absence of stiffness is a form of strength, allowing the body to remain intact under conditions that would crush solid forms. Equally important is what these animals lack. Air-filled spaces are almost entirely absent. Lungs, swim bladders, and gas pockets create vulnerabilities at depth because they compress dramatically under pressure. Deep sea life avoids this risk by relying on fluids instead of gases. Buoyancy is achieved through tissue composition rather than trapped air, allowing bodies to hover or settle without structural collapse. Even sensory systems reflect this adaptation. Hearing and balance rely on dense fluids rather than air chambers. Vision, when present, operates without large cavities behind the eyes. Every internal space is either filled with liquid or minimized to prevent compression. This design ensures that pressure passes through the body uniformly, leaving no weak point to exploit. Circulation also adjusts to constant pressure. Blood moves through vessels that remain flexible, never rigid. Flow is steady and slow, matched to reduced metabolic demands. The heart does not need to pump forcefully, only consistently. In this environment, endurance matters more than speed. Reproduction follows the same pattern of adjustment. Eggs and larvae develop without air spaces, protected by soft coverings that tolerate compression. Growth proceeds slowly, reducing the need for rapid change. Life here unfolds across long spans of time, shaped by patience rather than urgency. Together, these adaptations form a quiet agreement between organism and environment. Life does not fight the pressure, it accepts it, designs around it, and continues within it. The deep ocean does not allow error or excess. Survival belongs to forms that fit seamlessly into the conditions they inhabit. In this way, the deepest life on Earth demonstrates a fundamental truth. Persistence does not always require strength or resistance. Sometimes it requires softness, precision, and a willingness to exist exactly as the environment demands, steady and unbroken beneath the weight of the ocean above. At the deepest seafloor, food does not arrive with regularity or abundance. It comes quietly, often unnoticed, drifting down from distant places far above. Life here is sustained not by growth or sunlight, but by patience. Every meal is the result of a long journey through layers of water, shaped by gravity and time rather than pursuit. Most nourishment begins its descent in the upper ocean. Tiny fragments of organic matter break away from living systems near the surface, carried downward as a slow, continuous fall. Microscopic remains, waste, and fragments of decaying life sink steadily, forming a thin rain that never truly stops. By the time these particles reach the deep, much has already been consumed, leaving only what endured the long passage. This falling debris settles gently onto the seafloor, collecting in soft sediments. For deep-sea organisms, it represents a dependable but sparse source of energy. Feeding here is not about searching widely. It is about recognizing opportunity when it arrives. Many animals remain still for long periods, conserving energy until these particles gather within reach. Occasionally, larger offerings arrive. A dead animal from higher waters descends through darkness, its body growing colder and heavier as it falls. When it finally reaches the bottom, it becomes a brief center of activity in an otherwise quiet world. The arrival is not sudden or dramatic. There is no explosion of movement. Instead, life gathers slowly, guided by chemical traces rather than sight. Shrimp and other scavengers are often the first to arrive. They move carefully, testing the resource before settling into a measured rhythm of feeding. Larger animals may follow, each taking part without urgency. The meal unfolds over days or even weeks, the remains gradually returning to the sediment. Nothing is wasted. Every piece is shared, processed, and redistributed through the ecosystem. Some organisms feed directly from the seafloor itself. Worms and small invertebrates ingest sediment, extracting organic material trapped within the mud. This slow feeding reshapes the ground grain by grain, turning fallen debris into energy that sustains life over long spans of time. Their movement leaves faint trails, subtle signs of consumption rather than disturbance. The pace of feeding reflects the environment. Rapid movement would cost more energy than it could return. Instead, deep-sea animals feed slowly, methodically, aligned with the rhythm of arrival rather than desire. Meals are spaced far apart, and digestion unfolds over extended periods. The body adapts to scarcity by lowering demand rather than increasing effort. This method of survival favors calm over competition. There is little advantage in aggression where resources are rare and predictable only in their unpredictability. Cooperation emerges naturally, not through behavior but through timing. Animals feed alongside one another without conflict, each adapted to extract what it needs without excess. Energy cycles here are long and quiet. A particle that falls today may support life months or even years later. A carcass that arrives may feed many species in sequence, each playing a role in its gradual return to the sediment. This slow transfer of energy sustains the deep without ever overwhelming it. In this environment, hunger is not constant panic. It is a state managed through biology. Bodies slow their processes, movements become economical, and survival aligns with waiting rather than seeking. The deep ocean rewards restraint, teaching its inhabitants to exist between meals without urgency. Food arrives softly, disappears gradually, and leaves little trace behind. Yet this gentle system has sustained life for immense stretches of time. In the deepest places on Earth, nourishment is not taken. It is received, accepted quietly, and used with care, allowing life to continue in stillness far below the world of light and motion above. In the deepest reaches of the ocean, the familiar rhythm of life built around plants simply does not exist. Sunlight never arrives here, and without it, photosynthesis has no place. Leaves, stems, and roots belong to another world far above. At the seafloor, life unfolds without green, without growth driven by light, and without the steady renewal that plants provide on land and in shallow seas. This absence reshapes everything. Energy does not flow upward from sunlight captured by cells. Instead, it arrives indirectly, carried downward from distant ecosystems, or released quietly from the earth itself. Life here depends on what remains after the surface world has taken its share, on fragments and residues that drift into darkness long after their origin is forgotten. Most energy in this environment is powered by decay. Organic matter falls slowly through miles of water, breaking down as it descends. By the time it reaches the bottom, it carries only a fraction of its original richness. Yet this reduced material is enough. Microbes process it first, breaking complex molecules into simpler forms. Larger organisms then feed on those microbes or on the sediment enriched by their activity. The entire system runs on recycling, with nothing wasted and nothing renewed quickly. This slow transformation defines the pace of life. Without plants producing fresh energy daily, there is no surplus to drive rapid growth or large populations. Everything operates close to balance. Energy enters the system gradually and leaves it just as slowly. The deep becomes a place where efficiency matters more than expansion, and where life is shaped by limits rather than abundance. In some areas, energy comes not from above but from below. Chemical reactions within the earth release compounds that can be used by specialized organisms. These microbes do not rely on light at all. Instead, they draw energy from chemicals seeping through the seafloor, turning inorganic material into biological matter. This process forms the foundation of small, localized ecosystems that exist entirely apart from the sunlit world. Larger animals gather around these microbial communities, feeding on the life they support. Once again, plants play no role. The base of the food web is chemical rather than solar, grounded in geology instead of weather or season. These systems are stable and restrained, shaped by slow flows of energy from the planet itself. The absence of plants also changes how space feels. There are no forests, no meadows, no vertical structures reaching upward. The seafloor remains open and uncluttered, its surface defined by sediment and subtle relief. Life does not rise toward light. It spreads gently across the ground or moves slowly through the water above it, without orientation toward day or night. Color follows this absence. Without plants, there is no green to dominate the landscape. The palette narrows to pale tissues, muted sediments, and occasional bioluminescent glow. The world becomes visually simple, relying on texture and motion rather than brightness. Despite what is missing, this world is complete in its own way. Life here does not feel deprived. It is adapted, aligned with conditions that have remained unchanged for immense spans of time. Decay is not an ending, but a beginning, the quiet engine that keeps the system moving. Chemical energy does not rush, it sustains. This is a world where life is powered by what remains, rather than what grows. Without plants, without sunlight, and without renewal through photosynthesis, existence continues through patience and transformation. In the deepest ocean, energy flows softly and steadily, allowing life to persist in a place where nothing green has ever lived, yet where living systems endure, calm and unbroken, at the far edge of the planet's reach. At the deepest seafloor, life exists at the edge of presence, not absent, not extinct, but spread so thinly that distance becomes one of the defining features of survival. Here, animals are few, separated by wide expanses of sediment and water, each individual occupying a world measured more in space than in neighbors. The ground stretches outward in long, quiet plains. Between one living form and the next, there may be vast gaps of untouched sediment, smooth and undisturbed for years at a time. Tracks fade slowly, sometimes lasting longer than the animals that made them. This sparseness is not a failure of the ecosystem, it is its design. Energy arrives slowly, and so life arranges itself to match that pace. Encounters are rare. One animal may pass days or weeks without crossing another's path. There is no crowding, no competition driven by proximity. Each organism exists within its own margin of space, shaped by what little nourishment drifts down and what little motion is required to claim it. The deep does not support abundance, it supports endurance. Distances here feel amplified by stillness. With currents weak and movement slow, space does not collapse through action. It remains open, quiet, and intact. An animal moving across the seafloor appears isolated not only because of how few others exist, but because there is nothing to distract from that separation. No vegetation breaks the line of sight. No sound bridges the gaps. Silence dominates this environment. The ocean above absorbs and softens vibration, leaving the deep insulated from surface noise. Storms cannot reach this far. Waves have no influence. Even distant seismic sounds arrive muted and vague, if they arrive at all. What remains is a steady, near complete quiet, interrupted only by the faint sounds of the vessel or the subtle movement of life itself. This silence changes perception. Without sound to indicate scale or activity, the environment feels larger than it looks. The absence of noise allows the mind to sense distance more clearly, to recognize how much space exists between moments of motion. Each action stands alone, unaccompanied by a background of sound. For the animals that live here, this isolation shapes behavior. Communication is minimal. Signals, when they exist, are brief and subdued. Bioluminescent flashes appear rarely, conserving energy and avoiding unnecessary attention. Chemical traces drift slowly, fading before they can travel far. The deep does not favor long-range interaction. It favors independence. Reproduction reflects this solitude as well. Mates may be encountered infrequently, requiring strategies that do not depend on proximity or timing. Some organisms rely on chance meetings guided by chemical cues. Others invest heavily in few offspring, ensuring that survival does not require repeated encounters. Life adapts not by increasing contact, but by reducing the need for it. Despite its loneliness, this ecosystem is stable. The lack of disturbance preserves structure. Sediments remain layered. Conditions change only over geological time. In this calm, life does not need to defend territory or compete aggressively. Survival depends on maintaining balance rather than claiming space. The loneliness of the deep is not emptiness. It is spacing. Each organism has room to exist without interference. Silence allows processes to unfold without interruption. Distance reduces conflict and waste. In this way, isolation becomes a form of order. As the vessel remains suspended above this quiet world, the scale of separation becomes clear. Life continues here without crowd, noise, or urgency. The deep ocean supports an ecosystem defined not by interaction, but by persistence across immense distances, held together by silence and time at the farthest reach of the living planet. When human eyes finally looked out upon the deepest seafloor, the view did not arrive with spectacle. It emerged slowly, shaped by careful light and patient observation. The bottom appeared pale and expansive, a quiet plain extending beyond the edges of the viewport. Sediment lay undisturbed, fine as dust, forming gentle contours that reflected centuries of settling rather than sudden change. The seafloor looked softer than expected. It was not bare rock, but a living surface layered with material from far above. Particles rested lightly, ready to lift at the smallest disturbance. When the vessel moved closer, faint clouds rose and settled again, revealing how little force was needed to rearrange this world. The ground held the memory of motion, preserving tracks and marks far longer than on land. Living creatures soon became visible, though not in large numbers. They appeared quietly, often only after careful attention. Small animals rested against the sediment, their bodies pale and delicate, blending into the surroundings. Some moved slowly across the bottom, leaving thin lines behind them that traced their passage. Others remained still, their presence revealed only by subtle shifts in form or texture. These creatures did not behave as surface life does. There was no sudden flight, no rapid response to intrusion. Movement unfolded at a measured pace, as if time itself flowed differently here. Animals adjusted position gradually, conserving energy, aware of the visitor without reacting strongly. Life continued with calm indifference to observation. At times, unexpected motion drew attention. A faint shape might drift across the beam, barely visible until it crossed the light's edge. Something would rise briefly from the sediment, then settle back again, leaving only a suggestion of activity. These movements were not dramatic, yet they carried weight, signs that the deep was active in ways not immediately obvious. Some observers described seeing living forms where theory once predicted absence. Soft-bodied animals appeared intact and thriving, shaped by pressure rather than damaged by it. Their structures seemed almost unfinished to eyes accustomed to firmer outlines, yet they moved with confidence and ease within their environment. Each organism appeared precisely suited to this place. The most striking aspect was how little disturbed the scene felt. Despite the arrival of a machine and human presence within it, the seafloor remained composed. There were no large gatherings, no sudden scattering. Life did not react as though threatened. It simply continued, unfolding at its own pace. Strange movements sometimes appeared beyond the direct beam. Shadows shifted at the edge of vision, shapes suggested by motion rather than light. These hints never fully resolved, leaving observers aware of activity without clear detail. The deep revealed itself in fragments, offering glimpses rather than full views. Even the absence of movement carried meaning. Long stretches passed without any visible life, reinforcing the scale of the environment. When something did appear, it felt significant, not because it was rare in absolute terms, but because it occupied so much space alone. Each sighting stood on its own, unaccompanied by crowd or noise. Human visitors often noted how the experience resisted description. What they saw felt real, yet detached from ordinary experience. The seafloor did not feel hostile or welcoming. It felt established, as though it had existed in this state long before observation and would remain unchanged afterward. What humans actually saw was not an alien world, but a restrained one. A place where life persisted quietly, movement unfolded slowly, and presence mattered more than display. The deep did not perform for its visitors. It simply allowed them to witness a small portion of its steady, enduring existence, carried on in silence beneath the weight of the ocean above. Exploration slows in the deepest ocean, not because curiosity fades, but because every descent demands extraordinary commitment. Reaching this environment requires resources far beyond those used in most scientific work. Each mission begins long before the vessel touches water, with years of planning, testing, and preparation. Materials must be rare and specialized, crews highly trained, and support ships capable of operating far from land for extended periods. The cost accumulates quietly, not in spectacle, but in persistence, limiting how often such journeys can be attempted. Building machines that can survive the deep is itself an ongoing challenge. Hulls must be crafted with precision, often from thick metals or advanced composites shaped into careful curves. Every component is custom designed. Windows are small, systems are duplicated, and margins are tight. Nothing off the shelf can be trusted at such depth. Even minor flaws become unacceptable risks when replacement is impossible. Danger accompanies every stage of exploration. Pressure remains relentless and unforgiving. A single failure can end a mission instantly. There is no opportunity for rapid rescue, no external support once the descent has begun. Communication delays increase with depth, and recovery depends on systems functioning exactly as designed. The deep does not allow improvisation. It requires certainty. These dangers do not announce themselves dramatically. They exist quietly in seals, joints, and circuits, waiting for any weakness. Engineers and pilots understand that safety depends on restraint. Missions are conservative by necessity, limiting duration, range, and complexity. Exploration advances in careful increments, guided by caution rather than ambition. Technical limits add further constraints. Power is finite. Batteries must sustain life support, propulsion, lighting, and instruments, all while operating in cold that reduces efficiency. Data transmission is slow and limited, often relying on brief connections or physical recovery of equipment. Cameras see only what their light reveals, and sensors capture only narrow slices of a vast environment. Much of the deep remains outside reach not because it is unknown, but because tools cannot yet linger there long enough. Navigation is another challenge. Without familiar landmarks, position must be calculated through instruments alone. Maps of the deep are incomplete, their details coarse compared to those of land. Fine-scale exploration requires repeated passes, each costly and time-consuming. The sheer size of the ocean floor magnifies this difficulty, spreading effort thin across immense distances. Weather above also shapes access. Surface conditions determine when and where dives can occur. Storms, swells, and shifting currents can delay missions or cancel them entirely. The deep may be calm, but reaching it requires passing through a surface world that remains unpredictable. Windows of opportunity are brief, and missed chances can mean waiting years to return. Human presence adds further limits. Crewed dives require life support systems that increase size and complexity. Every additional safeguard adds weight and cost. Uncrewed missions avoid some risks but face others, operating without direct observation and relying entirely on programmed decisions. Each approach offers possibilities and constraints, and neither allows rapid, widespread exploration. These combined factors shape the pace of discovery. The deep ocean does not resist exploration through hostility. It resists through scale, weight, and silence. Progress unfolds slowly, guided by incremental advances rather than sweeping surveys. Knowledge accumulates in fragments, each piece earned through careful effort. For now, the deepest places remain largely untouched, not because they lack importance, but because reaching them demands patience equal to the environment itself. Exploration continues when conditions align, when resources permit, and when technology advances just enough to allow another careful step downward, taken with respect for a world that offers no shortcuts and no margins for haste. Despite every careful descent and each returning data set, the deepest ocean remains largely uncharted. What humans have seen represents only fragments, brief encounters with a world too vast and quiet to be understood all at once. Knowledge here grows slowly, surrounded by uncertainty that is not dramatic, but persistent. Many species remain unknown. The animals already observed suggest that life has found numerous ways to exist under pressure, cold, and darkness. Yet every recorded sighting hints at others still unseen. Small variations in depth, chemistry, and sediment can shape entirely different communities. Creatures adapted to these narrow conditions may live only within limited zones, invisible unless a vessel passes directly overhead. The scarcity of encounters does not imply scarcity of life, only the limits of observation. Some organisms likely move rarely, conserving energy so completely that their presence escapes cameras and sensors alike. Others may dwell beneath the sediment, leaving no visible trace on the surface. Microbial life, forming the foundation of many deep ecosystems, remains especially difficult to catalog. Its diversity is vast, yet much of it resists cultivation or direct study. Each sample collected reveals complexity without closure, patterns without full context. Large portions of the seafloor itself remain unseen. Maps of the deep are often broad and generalized, showing contours rather than detail. Fine-scale features such as small ridges, depressions, and chemical gradients may shape ecosystems in subtle ways, yet these features lie beyond the resolution of most surveys. Between explored sites stretch immense distances where no instrument has ever hovered. These unseen areas represent not emptiness, but possibility. Even where exploration has occurred, understanding remains incomplete. Measurements capture moments, not processes unfolding over decades or centuries. Conditions in the deep change slowly, and short visits can miss long-term patterns. Feeding cycles, population shifts, and interactions between species may occur over spans that far exceed the duration of any single mission. Science here gathers glimpses rather than continuous records. There are also gaps in how knowledge connects across disciplines. Physics explains pressure and temperature. Chemistry describes reactions in sediment and water. Biology observes adaptation and survival. Yet these pieces do not always align neatly. How changes in circulation affect food supply, how chemical gradients influence evolution, and how microbial processes scale up to support larger life remain areas of quiet uncertainty. The deep does not yield simple answers. Technology itself shapes what can be known. Instruments are designed with assumptions drawn from surface conditions, adjusted carefully but never perfectly. Sensors may miss signals that fall outside expected ranges. Cameras reveal what light can reach, leaving much unrecorded beyond narrow beams. Data gaps appear not because nothing is there, but because tools cannot yet perceive it. Human presence introduces further limits. Each descent is rare and brief, constrained by power, safety, and cost. Continuous monitoring of the deepest environments remains beyond reach. Without long-term observation, many processes remain inferred rather than confirmed, their rhythms suggested but not fully traced. This uncertainty does not diminish what has been discovered. Instead, it places those discoveries within a wider frame. The deep ocean exists as a reminder that knowledge grows unevenly, advancing where access allows and pausing where it does not. What remains unknown is not a failure of curiosity, but a reflection of scale and patience. In the deepest parts of the planet, understanding arrives slowly, carried upward in pieces. The silence of the seafloor holds many answers still embedded within it, not hidden deliberately, but simply beyond the current reach of observation. The gaps in science remain open, not as obstacles, but as spaces where future understanding may one day settle as gently and gradually as sediment falling through the dark. Even at the farthest depths, the ocean does not exist apart from the surface world. What enters the water above does not always remain there. Over time, fragments and traces drift downward, following the same slow paths as falling food and sediment. The deepest seafloor, once shaped only by geology and decay, now carries quiet signs of distant human activity. Plastic is among the most visible of these signs. Though it arrives transformed, large pieces rarely reach the bottom intact. Sunlight, waves, and motion break them down first, reducing them to smaller fragments that sink more easily. These particles descend gradually, mingling with organic matter until they become part of the settling rain that reaches the deep. On the seafloor, plastic appears not as litter, but as fine pieces embedded in sediment or ingested by small organisms. These fragments persist because they do not decay in the same way natural materials do. They resist breakdown, remaining long after organic matter has been processed and reused. In this environment of slow change, plastic accumulates quietly, adding a new component to sediments that once formed only from mineral grains and biological remains. Its presence alters texture and chemistry in subtle ways that unfold over long spans of time. Chemical pollutants arrive as well, carried invisibly through the ocean's layers. Compounds released at the surface dissolve into water and travel with currents, spreading far from their points of origin. Some attach to sinking particles, hitching a ride toward the bottom. Others move independently, dispersing until they reach cold, dense waters where circulation slows and compounds linger. At depth, these chemicals can concentrate in unexpected ways. With little mixing and slow turnover, the deep becomes a place where traces persist rather than dilute. Toxins bind to sediment, enter microbial processes, and move quietly through food webs already adapted to scarcity. The effects are difficult to observe directly, not because they are insignificant, but because change here unfolds at a pace that resists easy measurement. The presence of these materials marks the deep with human fingerprints. They are not dramatic or obvious. There are no piles or spills, no clear boundaries. Instead, there is evidence woven into the environment, detectable through careful sampling and analysis. A fragment here, a compound there, signals that even the planet's most remote spaces are connected to human systems. Life at the bottom encounters these materials without context. Organisms adapted to ancient conditions ingest what arrives, whether natural or synthetic. Microplastics mix with food particles. Chemicals move through tissues alongside nutrients. The deep does not distinguish between sources. It responds only to what is present, integrating new materials into existing processes. This integration raises concerns precisely because the deep changes slowly. Recovery from disturbance takes long spans of time. Once altered, conditions may persist far beyond the scale of human planning or response. The deep cannot quickly cleanse itself. It holds on to what it receives, storing traces as it stores heat and sediment, quietly and for long durations. Yet even here, the presence of pollution is not a spectacle. It is subtle, measured in parts rather than scenes. Its significance lies not in immediate disruption, but in accumulation. Each fragment and molecule adds to a record that will remain long after surface waters have moved on. The discovery of human materials at the deepest points reinforces a simple truth. The ocean is continuous, from surface to floor. Distance and pressure do not form barriers to connection. What happens above eventually arrives below, reshaped by time and depth but not erased. In the stillness of the seafloor, these traces settle alongside ancient sediments, becoming part of the planet's ongoing story. The deep records them without commentary, absorbing human influence as it absorbs everything else, patiently, quietly, and with a permanence that reflects the weight of the world above. Far beneath the surface, the deepest ocean participates quietly in the planet's balance. Its influence is not obvious, and it does not announce itself through dramatic motion. Instead, it works through slow accumulation and steady exchange, shaping systems that extend far beyond the darkness in which it rests. One of its most important roles lies in carbon storage. Organic material that forms near the surface does not remain there forever. Fragments sink gradually, passing through layers of water until they reach the bottom. Over time, this descent transfers carbon away from the atmosphere and into the deep ocean. Some of it is recycled by life along the way, but a portion settles into sediment, locked away for long spans of time. This process does not rely on speed or scale. It depends on patience. The deep acts as a quiet reservoir, holding carbon out of circulation and moderating how much remains active near the surface. This storage stabilizes the planet. By sequestering carbon in cold, dense environments, the ocean reduces the intensity of surface fluctuations. The deepest seafloor becomes part of a long-term ledger, recording what has passed downward and preserving it under pressure and stillness. Change occurs slowly here, and that slowness matters. Ocean circulation also connects the deep to the rest of Earth. Cold, heavy water sinks and spreads, moving along the seafloor in vast currents that take centuries to complete their paths. These currents are not driven by wind or tides, but by differences in temperature and density. As they move, they distribute heat, nutrients, and dissolved gases around the planet. The deep ocean forms the foundation of this circulation, its cold waters setting the pace for movements that eventually influence surface conditions. This slow circulation links distant regions. What sinks in one part of the world may emerge elsewhere after generations have passed. The deep connects oceans into a single system, allowing energy and material to move steadily without disruption. Without this deep movement, surface systems would become more isolated, less balanced, and more volatile. Climate links emerge from these same processes. The deep ocean absorbs heat from the atmosphere, storing it far below where it cannot quickly return. This buffering effect dampens rapid temperature changes at the surface. Heat enters the deep slowly and leaves it even more slowly, smoothing extremes over time. The deep does not stop change, but it moderates its pace. As climate patterns shift, the deep responds gradually. Its temperature remains stable, but small changes in circulation can influence how much heat and carbon it absorbs. These adjustments ripple outward, affecting weather, sea level, and biological productivity far above. The deep remains steady, but its steadiness shapes everything connected to it. Life at depth contributes as well. Microbial activity processes carbon that reaches the bottom, influencing how much remains stored and how much returns to circulation. Feeding, decay, and sediment formation all play roles in regulating the planet's chemistry. These processes occur out of sight, but not without consequence. The importance of the deepest ocean lies in its restraint. It does not amplify change. It absorbs, stores, and redistributes with care. Its cold, dark environment allows the planet to operate within bounds that favor stability over extremes. In this way, the deepest place on Earth supports the surface world without ever being seen. It holds heat, carbon, and memory beneath miles of water, shaping climate and circulation through quiet persistence. The planet depends on this hidden system not for spectacle, but for balance, maintained slowly and steadily in the darkness below. The deepest ocean carries a quality that unsettles without drama. It does not rely on sudden movement or visible threat. The feeling emerges slowly, shaped by conditions that strip away the familiar and replace it with steadiness that feels almost too complete. Darkness, pressure, and isolation do not announce themselves. They settle in quietly, altering perception over time. Darkness here is not simply the absence of light. It is a presence in its own right, consistent and uninterrupted. There are no gradients or shadows that hint at direction. The eye searches instinctively, yet finds nothing to anchor itself. Without visual reference, space becomes difficult to judge. Distance collapses inward, and the sense of scale drifts. The mind, accustomed to horizons and edges, finds only uniform black and must adjust to an environment that offers no reassurance through sight. This darkness never lifts. It does not cycle or soften. It has no memory of day. Over time, the absence of visual change creates a subtle disorientation. Moments blur together, and attention turns inward. Awareness sharpens, not from danger, but from the need to remain oriented in a world that provides no external cues. Pressure deepens this effect. It is invisible, yet absolute. Every surface, every joint, every sealed space carries its weight. The body cannot sense it directly, but the knowledge of its presence shapes experience. The understanding that the surrounding water presses inward with constant force alters how one inhabits space. Movement becomes careful. Stillness feels intentional. The environment allows no margins, no flexibility, only endurance. This pressure removes the casualness of existence. Nothing here can be accidental. Every structure must hold. Every system remain intact. Even without visible strain, the awareness of compression becomes part of the background, a steady reminder that survival depends on balance maintained without interruption. Isolation completes the atmosphere. There are no signs of other human activity, no distant lights, no layered sounds, no suggestion of proximity. Communication with the surface exists, but it feels thin, delayed by distance and medium. The separation is not emotional, it is spatial and physical, measured in miles of water and time. The realization settles that help cannot arrive quickly. Presence becomes singular. This isolation alters how space is experienced. The environment feels vast, not because it is busy, but because it is empty of markers. Without crowds, structures, or movement, the deep expands. Silence reinforces this expansion. Sound fades, absorbed by water that offers no echo. The absence of noise removes the sense of enclosure, replacing it with openness that feels boundless. Together, these conditions create an experience that resists interpretation. The deep does not feel hostile, yet it does not feel welcoming either. It exists independently, indifferent to observation. This indifference carries weight. It reminds the observer that the world continues without needing acknowledgement. The unsettling quality arises not from fear, but from exposure to limits. Darkness removes sight, pressure removes error, isolation removes support. What remains is existence reduced to essentials. Awareness becomes focused, uncluttered by distraction. Time stretches, unbroken by change. In this state, the deep reflects something back. It reveals how much of ordinary comfort relies on light, space shared with others, and environments that respond visibly to presence. Without these, perception shifts. The deep feels unsettling because it is complete unto itself. It does not mirror human expectations. It does not adjust. It simply remains steady and unmoving, asking nothing, offering nothing, and continuing on as it always has, far beneath the surface world that senses it only faintly. At the deepest reaches of the ocean, life approaches its quiet boundary. This is not a sharp line where existence stops, but a gradual thinning, a place where survival becomes increasingly selective. Each additional meter downward narrows the range of conditions that living systems can endure. What remains is not abundance, but persistence shaped by strict limits. Here, life barely survives, not because the environment is chaotic, but because it is so stable. Temperature remains near freezing. Pressure increases without relief. Darkness is complete and permanent. These conditions do not fluctuate enough to offer opportunity for rapid adaptation. They demand solutions that are precise and rare. Only organisms shaped over immense spans of time can function within such narrow margins. Energy is the first constraint. Without sunlight, without plants, and with minimal food arriving from above, life operates on extremely limited input. Every biological process must be efficient. Growth is slow, movement is measured, waste is minimal. Any excess demand would tip the balance toward failure. Survival depends not on strength, but on restraint. Pressure defines another boundary. At these depths, it reshapes chemistry and biology alike. Proteins must remain flexible. Cell membranes must function without rigidity. Structures that rely on empty spaces, such as lungs or buoyant chambers, cannot exist. Life adapts by becoming soft, compressible, and closely aligned with its surroundings. These adaptations work only up to certain thresholds. Beyond them, molecular systems begin to fail. Temperature reinforces these limits. Cold slows chemical reactions, reducing the speed at which cells can function. Enzymes operate more slowly. Repair processes take longer. Life compensates through stability rather than speed, but this compensation has boundaries. Below certain temperatures, even the most specialized systems cannot sustain activity at all. Isolation adds another layer. Populations are sparse, encounters infrequent, reproduction becomes uncertain, genetic diversity is harder to maintain. Each organism exists near the edge of viability, not only individually, but as part of a fragile population spread across vast distances. Survival depends on rare alignments of timing and proximity. These combined constraints explain why life fades gradually rather than ending abruptly. Each factor narrows the window of possibility. Energy, pressure, temperature, and isolation overlap, creating conditions where only the most finely tuned organisms can function. Beyond this overlap, life does not transition into another form. It simply cannot proceed. The edge of Earth's living space is therefore not defined by hostility. It is defined by balance. Life requires a narrow range where chemistry, physics, and time intersect in just the right way. The deep ocean approaches the outer edge of that range. It represents one of the last places where this balance still holds. What exists here challenges assumptions about where life belongs. It shows that survival does not depend on light or warmth alone, but it also demonstrates that limits are real. There are places where adaptation slows, where solutions run out, and where the requirements of living systems exceed what the environment can offer. At the deepest seafloor, life persists close to this threshold. It does not push endlessly forward. It occupies what space remains, using every available advantage, conserving every resource. The deep stands as a reminder that the planet's living space is vast, but not infinite. This boundary is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It simply exists, marked by fewer organisms, slower processes, and increasing stillness. At the edge of Earth's living space, life continues quietly, not conquering the environment, but fitting into it as precisely as possible, held there by limits that cannot be crossed. At the farthest reach of the ocean's descent lies a single place where depth gathers into a narrow hollow. This is the deepest known spot on Earth, a point where the seafloor drops farther than anywhere else the planet's surface allows. The water above presses downward in a long, unbroken column, measuring depth not by steep cliffs, but by accumulation, layer after layer settling into the same place. Its depth is measured in thousands of meters, extending beyond what the human body or ordinary machines can endure. Each additional stretch downward adds weight, cold, and darkness until the conditions become distinct even from the surrounding deep. This spot is not dramatically different in appearance from nearby regions, yet the numbers attached to it mark a clear threshold. It represents the deepest point at which Earth's crust dips beneath the ocean. Determining this depth required patience rather than spectacle. Early attempts relied on sound, sending pulses downward and listening for their return. These echoes traveled through water that bends and slows sound in complex ways, introducing uncertainty that had to be carefully resolved. As technology improved, measurements became more precise, refined through repeated passes and careful calibration. Later surveys combined sound with detailed mapping, tracing the contours of the trench floor rather than relying on a single reading. Each pass added resolution, narrowing uncertainty and sharpening the outline of the deepest point. Even now, measurements continue to be adjusted by small margins as instruments improve, not because the place changes, but because understanding becomes clearer. What makes this spot unique is not only its depth, but its isolation. It exists as a concentrated extreme, surrounded by areas that are still profoundly deep, yet measurably less so. The seafloor slopes toward it gently, funneling sediment and debris into its hollow. Over time, it collects what drifts down from above, creating a basin shaped by gravity and stillness. Conditions here push the limits of what is known to function. Pressure reaches levels that deform metal and challenge the strongest materials available. Temperature remains near freezing. Movement is minimal. These factors combine to create an environment that few places on Earth can rival. It is not simply deep. It is the deepest expression of the ocean's character. Despite this extremity, the spot is not separate from the systems around it. Water circulates slowly through it. Sediment settles and shifts. Life, sparse and specialized, continues to exist. The deepest point is part of a continuous landscape, not an isolated void. Its uniqueness lies in degree, not kind. This depth has been visited only rarely, and only with careful preparation. Each visit confirms measurements while reinforcing the challenges of observation. Instruments must be designed specifically for this environment. Their tolerance is exact. Even light behaves differently, absorbed almost immediately, leaving illumination confined to a small, artificial window. The significance of this place extends beyond its record-holding status. It provides a reference, a fixed point against which the rest of the ocean can be understood. By knowing how deep the planet can descend, scientists better grasp the range of conditions Earth supports. This spot anchors our understanding of limits, both physical and biological. In the end, the deepest known spot is defined less by a single number than by what that number represents. It marks the furthest reach of the ocean's downward path, a place where gravity, pressure, and time converge. Quiet and unchanged, it remains a steady reference in a world shaped by motion above, holding its depth patiently beneath the weight of the sea. When the ocean is considered as a single surface, its depth can be overlooked. Yet beneath the waves, the water is arranged in layers, each with its own character, weight, and motion. These layers do not mix freely. They slide over and beneath one another, forming a vertical arrangement that turns the ocean into a stacked world, extending downward through darkness and time. Near the surface, water responds to air and light. Movement is frequent, driven by wind and warmth. As depth increases, that motion softens. Layers become colder, heavier, and more stable. Each boundary marks a subtle shift in density and temperature, creating a structure that behaves less like a single body and more like a series of connected environments. The deeper one goes, the more distinct these layers become. Pressure increases with every descent, compressing water into tighter arrangements. Molecules settle closer together, making the deep ocean denser than anything above it. This density helps lock layers in place, allowing the lower ocean to remain isolated from surface changes. Heat and energy struggle to penetrate these depths, leaving the bottom layers calm and persistent. Within this stacked system, entire worlds exist one above another. Light fades, sound changes, and chemistry shifts gradually between layers. Life adapts to each zone, shaped by the conditions that prevail there. What thrives near the surface would fail far below, while deep adapted organisms remain bound to their narrow ranges. These layers do not blur into one another. They hold their identities, creating vertical separation as meaningful as distance across land. Water moves slowly between these layers, guided by gravity and density rather than speed. Cold, heavy water sinks and spreads along the bottom, forming deep currents that circle the globe over immense spans of time. Above them, lighter waters drift more freely. Together, these movements connect the layers into a single system, even as they keep each layer distinct. The result is a planet beneath our planet, built not of rock and soil, but of water arranged in depth. The surface world floats atop this structure, influenced by processes occurring far below. Heat stored in deep layers, moderates climate above, nutrients carried upward support life in shallower zones. The stacked ocean quietly shapes conditions on land without ever revealing its form. From above, the ocean appears flat and uniform. From within, it unfolds into a vertical landscape. Valleys of pressure, plains of cold water, and basins where density gathers replace familiar geography. The deepest layers remain unchanged for generations, preserving conditions that existed long before modern climates emerged. This vertical arrangement also preserves history. Water that sinks carries the memory of its origin, holding signatures of temperature, chemistry, and age. Deep layers may remain isolated for centuries before resurfacing. In this way, the ocean stores time as well as material, stacking eras beneath the present moment. Human experience is confined to the uppermost layer of this system. Ships, storms, and daily cycles play out above a depth that few ever reach. Beneath that familiar world lies another, then another, each quieter and more stable than the last. These worlds coexist, separated by gradients rather than walls. To recognize the ocean as layered is to see Earth differently. The planet does not end at the seafloor. It continues downward through water that behaves like architecture, supporting hidden systems below the surface world. Beneath our planet of land and sky lies another planet made of depth, weight, and silence, stacked patiently below us, shaping life above while remaining largely unseen. Far below the surface world, the deepest ocean remains much as it has been for immense stretches of time. Long after vessels depart and instruments return upward, life continues in the dark without interruption. There is no signal marking the end of observation, no change follows the passing of visitors. The deep resumes its steady rhythm, shaped by pressure, cold, and patience. Life here persists quietly. It does not expand or retreat dramatically. It maintains itself within narrow boundaries, shaped by conditions that rarely change. Feeding, movement, and growth unfold slowly, measured against energy that arrives only in fragments. Each organism occupies its place without competition or display, continuing patterns refined over countless generations. Survival is not an achievement renewed daily, it is a state held carefully over time. Silence remains the defining presence. Sound does not travel far, and when it does, it loses form and meaning. Without waves or wind, the water settles into stillness. This quiet is not empty. It carries the subtle movements of currents and the faint activities of living systems, yet nothing interrupts it strongly enough to leave a lasting mark. The deep absorbs disturbance and returns to calm. This silence preserves the environment. Without frequent disruption, sediments layer gently. Chemical balances remain stable. Biological processes continue without urgency. The absence of noise allows time to stretch, unbroken by cycles familiar at the surface. Day and night have no meaning here. Seasons do not pass. The deep exists within a broader scale, one measured in geological change rather than hours. Though exploration has reached these depths, much remains untouched. Vast areas have never been seen by human eyes or instruments. The darkness still holds spaces where life continues unrecorded, shaped by local conditions and histories unknown. What has been observed suggests not rarity, but restraint. The deep does not reveal itself easily, not because it hides, but because it has no need to be seen. Earth is deeper than we think, not only in distance, but in complexity. Beneath the familiar surface lies a layered world that influences climate, chemistry, and life itself. The deepest ocean participates in planetary systems quietly, storing heat, carbon, and memory. Its influence reaches upward without drawing attention, shaping the surface world while remaining largely invisible. This depth challenges assumptions about where the planet truly exists. The surface feels dominant only because it is where human activity occurs. In reality, most of Earth's living space lies below, arranged vertically rather than across land. The deep represents the largest continuous environment on the planet, operating under rules that differ from those above, yet remain fully part of the same world. What waits in the darkness is not mystery for its own sake, it is continuity. Life persists, processes continue. The planet carries on its work beneath layers of water, just as it has long before observation began. The deep does not rush toward revelation or change. It allows understanding to arrive slowly, in fragments, aligned with the pace of descent. As attention turns back toward the surface, the deepest ocean remains unchanged by recognition. It holds its silence and its life without adjustment. Darkness does not signal absence, it signals endurance. Beneath the weight of the sea, the planet continues to express itself in forms that do not seek notice. A place still waits in darkness, not frozen in time, but steady within it. Life continues there, silence remains, and the earth reveals itself as deeper, broader, and more patient than surface experience alone suggests.